All right, so I'm out at Shooter Symposium. Big Tex Ordnance is actually the title sponsor for Shooter Symposium this year, and they got me a spot in. So super grateful. Thanks, Big Tex. Thanks to Chris and Ike and the whole team. They've been awesome. And my class isn't till later tonight, so I'm gonna walk around and show you guys some of the instructors. Yesterday was the industry day, so they had some challenges. They had some demo booths. We'll check out something that I saw that I thought was pretty cool. They said I can shoot it again today, so I'll show you guys that here at the end. But I want to walk around and show you, highlight some of the instructors that are here and some of the other classes. And I believe I saw Zach, Kong, and Barajas here somewhere, so I'm going to go find them as well. But let me show you some of the instructors and show you a little bit about what Shooter Symposium is about. And yeah, let's get to it.
Kind of putting some of the things together. We talked about the visual fundamentals, physical fundamentals, and we haven't spent a lot of time breaking down and isolating every little thing. We're kind of getting a general overview, kind of like a skill development, right? When we start putting those things together, we got to put them in context. At what distances are these skills going to matter? At what distances do these skills become a little less realistic? And what is the overriding goal of any kind of training or practice? To become more efficient, right? So sometimes you're getting an isolation that you then add into other skill sets. And the problem with self-defense training, specific self-defense classes, is I can't make this realistic, right? Even the target itself is very unrealistic. We have a two-dimensional representation of a person. Everybody that ever attacks you, I can probably say with a high degree of confidence, is going to be three-dimensional, right? And they're going to present to you in very abstract ways, like, you know, in that moment. So sometimes you're training yourself for ideal presentation, right? If my threat faces me like this, should be pretty easy to burn him down. But if he does what people do, because people don't like to get shot, your type of sight picture may change. So your control of the skill set development is based on a target that you don't even know what it's going to look like. And that's the hardest part about skill development. So sometimes people ask me, why is your A zone so small? Your A zone feels like it's too small because it's 4 by 6 inches, and I'm requiring people to hit it from 3 to 25 to 35 to 45 yards. And they're like, come on, man. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I kind of think about real people and how hard they can be to hit when they don't want to get hit. So if I practice on something that demands that degree of discipline, hopefully I'll have the discipline in the moment to get better hits. What kind of accuracy do we usually see in self-defense shootings?
4.
Ballpark, what do you think? Percentage.
70% miss.
So 30%?
So 30%.
Interesting way to say it.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, people talk about like the standard average. There is no average because everybody collects data differently, and and nobody wants to get together and come up with a percentage. We have a whole bunch of data on deaths, but we don't keep data on wins, which is super aggravating. So ballpark, 25, 35%, which means out of 10 rounds, how many rounds miss the target? 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, depending on how many rounds are fired, right? But out of 10 rounds, you're looking at most of them missing. Could that be because of the targets that were used to teach the people? Could it be because of the type of teaching they got? Could it be because of the amount of practice that they had, the amount of training? All the things factor in, right? So if you guys obviously are taking training more seriously because you came to this class, targets are part of that. And I've already said it, and I'll say it again before the day's over, skill development is target dependent. The target really determines what level of skill set you're ultimately going to develop. The cool thing is you work on a target like this or maybe something more difficult, and then you go back to shooting on something a little bit more luxurious, and you look like a rock star. Like I can kill an FBIQ because I shoot a 4 by 6 A zone. I can kill a B8 because I shoot a 4 by 6 A zone. I've got the discipline to also be accurate, but I can do my accuracy with efficiency. So don't think about fast, think about efficient. We're looking for efficiency, 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 efficiency. At 3 yards, how efficient do I need to be? How much margin of error do I have? Without even getting into the what if, getting killed in the streets nonsense, when I think about human factors, if I'm 3 yards away from a person, a reflexive action they may have when the gun becomes presented is to reflexively grasp for control of the gun. So I gotta be quick. If I've got 5 yards, he's got 2 steps before he can then grasp for the gun or draw his own gun or stab me with a knife or hit me with the rake or whatever the situation happens to be. So the more efficient I am on presentation, acquisition, and rounds down range, and the more I'm trained to hit small but fast, I'm going to incapacitate that guy. Because handguns are pretty bad about stopping people as it is. So we want to try to be as efficient as possible in that. So we get into, and this is where we're working towards with our first part of the class, being able to shoot fast in a small amount of time. Not only on the gun, pop, 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 but also getting the gun out to go pop, 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 pop. And the reason I do that and the reason I kind of believe in that as a practice is because there's so much evidence that people are going to do it anyway. Think about all the body cam shootings you've seen in the past year. You see any of them where the guy was like, pop, pop. What do they usually look like?
Cyclic.
Pop, 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 pop. They're pulling the triggers so the bad man goes away. And that's not something they're probably taught how to do. I've been to 2 academies. I was not taught in either of my academies how to shoot fast. I had to go to an outside instructor to learn how to shoot fast. It wasn't something that was in the law enforcement zeitgeist. And then I see these cops at 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, even further yards. They just get on the gas pedal. Pop, 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 pop. So to me, it tells me we should be teaching people how to shoot like that because they're going to do it anyway. So the least we could do as instructors, like for me, when I'm talking to instructors, is think about, this is something I have to address, something I have to address. For the average citizen, they say that the engagements are different. They're usually closer ranges. They usually don't have the same degree of complications. But a shooting is a shooting is a shooting. Self-defense is self-defense. So for you guys, it's to me just as important to have the skill set, the ability to hit efficiently, as it would be for like a law enforcement officer. I don't think there shouldn't be a difference at all in skill set in that regard. So what we're going to work on is that efficiency. That first round, all that energy is draw stroke. If you get everything coming together right and you stabilize the dot just enough to fit in your desired point impact, pop, there's your first round. What's a reasonable amount of time to fire that first round? Depends on the distance, right? So let's say 3 yards. Should you be able to break that first round between 1 and 1.5? Absolutely. That's a standard metric. What about our second round? What should our split times be? How long do you think it takes a sight picture to settle? All these things are measurable, right? So for you at your individual skill level, it depends on how much you want to break down the shot. I can tell you right now, you see as fast as 13 milliseconds. That's smoking quick because 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second. 300 milliseconds sounds like this. The length of a shot timer beep. But that's usable time. So if I see in 13 milliseconds, and then the gun itself is going to cycle 50 to 70 milliseconds, they cycle quick. Reset. How much usable time is there in 1 second? 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds maybe, depending on the distance, right? Or depending on the size of the target. So is it reasonable to believe that in 1 second of time you have 3 to 4 sight pictures you may or may not use? So if I get a good grip and I present the gun, bang, I may let 3 or 4 sight pictures just go, and I'll use the 4th one, or I'll use the 5th one. So I'm needlessly slowing myself down. And kind of the way I can expand on that is, say I aim for the bullseye and I pull the trigger. As soon as the sight picture comes back, I pull the trigger again. If I wait longer, what do I get out of it? I'm probably waiting for a sight picture that's never going to happen. And this is a problem at 3 yards, just like it is at 25. Some people they manufacture slowness at 25 yards because they're intimidated by the distance. So they'll shoot the gun, they'll pray to Jesus or whatever it is they're doing in that second it takes them to fire the next round when they're letting sight pictures go by. So for me, and it's going to be very erratic, but I'm going to have a sight picture that's going to maybe look something like that, or maybe it looks like this. But here's the fun thing about sight pictures when it comes to the red dot. Let's say this is my margin of error, the whole bullseye. I'm trying to hit this, but I'll go with that. Is that a good sight picture? Little dot, will that fit? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what about this? Will that fit? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about this? That's kind of borderline, right? Because it's kind of more erratic, but it'll fit. Just gotta let it shrink down a little bit more. So when I think about showing people what that looks like, come back to about here. We got eyes and ears. All right. So first round, that was a .57 split. I know definitively the dot never left the bullseye at this distance. So what should my split have been? A little bit faster? If the reticle never really left the point of aim, why did I wait so long to fire the second shot? Let's see what it looks like. Okay, that's probably a little too fast, right? Because that time I didn't wait for the dot to shrink down into the center of the target. So that was a .16. That's too fast. So there is such a thing as too fast depending on the gun, depending on your skill level. So now let it shrink down a little bit more. There we go. That's a 2-1. So that's probably the speed I should be shooting, somewhere around that neighborhood. So then I think about, okay, oops, I wanted that. I'll move over here to this other bullseye, and I'll do a quick 5. All right, so that's a little bit too quick, but that was 2-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-3. So my splits are right around there about 0.2 of a second. Now I could probably shoot a little bit faster than that if I went to a larger target. You can see just based on the round placement, I am starting to walk up a little bit, so it is a little too quick for that size of target to be shooting that fast. But what the rounds tell me is the grip is providing me the ability to do it. If I speed up any more than that, I probably can't, to be realistically with you, because I'm not a super fast shooter. I can pull the trigger kind of quick, but I know a lot of people way faster than I am. I'm quick enough to get the job done, whatever. The recoil management is going good. On both targets, I have a center tracking shot group, and that's what I want. Now, when I put the whole package together and include a draw stroke, shooting fast on a target that small, you got to manage and you got to pay closer attention to what the dot is telling you can get away with. And the hardest thing to do is breaking the shot, trying to be predictive about it, because I see every 13 milliseconds, I'm reacquainting myself with what I see, but the sight picture itself comes at me at 168,000 miles a second, the speed of light. So the two, when you compare how fast you see to how fast the data gets to you, a lifetime of usable information is never used by humans because we can't see that fast. And then there's processing time and all kinds of other factors involved as well. So when I add the draw stroke into it and think about, okay, one more time. I don't want instant. Go ahead and do a delay. How long should it take me to fire 5 rounds? Draw stroke should be done in about 1 to 1.2 seconds. Sight picture acquired, first round pressed. And then I have to basically confirm the sight picture 4 more times to get 5 rounds. I don't want to waste sight pictures, but I also want to make sure I hit the bullseye every time. So I'm thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 seconds should be a successful 5 rounds from this distance on that target. And that's getting super anal. But I think sometimes we got to break it down to that level. So let's see what happens. All right, so 1 round out, 1.9. So I know if I really want to break it down, I've got a 1/10 of a second extra in there to make sure that all 5 of the rounds hit the target. But then I'm like, how do I use that? What do I do differently? Because everything felt like it was going great, but I still threw 1 round. Could it be maybe that speed is unrealistic for that size of target? I kind of feel like maybe that's the answer, but if I'm getting 4 out of 5, then I'm capable of doing it most of the time. Could it be a human factor? Could it just be something that like humans just cannot be that precise about every single time? I'll try it again, one more time. Did it again. 2.07, one more time. There we go. So whatever I was doing, I had to go over that 2 seconds by 1/100th of a second, basically, in order to get it. So I had to add a little bit more time. Now, if we look at the heat map, mostly centered, right? But it is a little bit left leaning, so that worries me a little bit. Now that may go away when I slow down, but some people, you're like, holy shit, why would we be shooting that fast on a target that small? What do you think? Is there a reason for it? Other than just the challenge? It's all about accuracy. Aim small, miss small. That's what everybody fucking says, right? Everybody just sharing tombstone quotes all over the fucking place, and none of them are paying attention to what the tombstone quote says. What's that other one that people always get wrong? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yeah, they're missing a whole, that's not the complete quote. Slow is slow, fast is fast. You're not going to get fast by going slow. You will get efficient by going slow, but you're not going to get fast. How do we build this into a replicatable skill set? You got to do it. But you have to be willing to analyze every single string and figure out what time you're wasting. And that's one thing, like I'm a self-defense instructor. I shoot tactically or whatever you want to call it. But this is stuff I picked up from competition guys. And if you want to learn how to efficiently run a gun, you got to take classes from dudes that are grandmasters. You got to take Rob Latham. Bob Vogel's right over there. Frank Proctor. There's other great dudes out there that will teach you how to maximize your uses of those small fractions of time that you can't even appreciate, but you can function with.
But if and when you ever practice your grip, try to change it or anything like that, you absolutely have to do that from the draw and practice it almost all from the draw. Anybody can start here with a good grip. It's easy to do, but to be able to get that, you know, quickly off the draw and get that same grip is the challenge. For me, I have to get my support hand on the gun very early. Okay, so wherever my hands are at, whether they're here or here, doesn't really matter. If both my hands are free, they would go here, and as I clear the holster, my support hand makes first contact with the gun all the way down here with an open hand right in this crevice right here. And then from here to there, I'm just kind of rolling this hand, pressuring it into the gun in order to end up with the grip that I get. That's the way I grip the gun. You watch a lot of guys, and when they draw the gun comes out, and they just take this hand and just try to slap it off the gun all the way out at the end. You just don't end up with as good of a grip that way. For the times, which is most of the times on a flat range, if you're just standing, if I'm just standing in one spot and I'm going to draw and I'm going to shoot, I'm going to get everything, my head, my shoulders, my body, everything set to where when I draw the gun, I really should just be moving my hands and my arms. Okay? Nothing else. So many guys are not doing that. They're having to kind of do this little shoulder hike thing, either going for the gun or pulling it out. The most common thing you see people do is as they present the gun, they want to kind of drop their head or their shoulders, have a little bit of that movement going on, and it throws you off from being able to put the gun right where you want, and it obviously takes a little bit more time. So you can practice that easy enough by just literally pointing at a target exactly like you're going to shoot, and then consciously holster the gun and just don't move anything else, and then draw right back to that spot. I think the hardest part about the draw, I don't care who you are, it's just, for me, it's always been initial hand placement on the gun. It's just the hardest thing to always get right. Especially when you're trying to go fast, it's so easy to kind of come down on the gun and just be a little bit off one way or the other. I will almost always draw and shoot anyways. Like very, very rarely would you see me take any time to correct my grip unless it's absolutely terrible. You just have to learn to shoot with a less than perfect grip. It's just part of the deal. Obviously, one of these things, the more you do it, the faster you get. But the two areas to mention where I think people can either save or lose the most time is at the holster and at the target. And when you draw the gun, most guys will do this naturally when you're faster, but to snatch the gun out of the holster is what I would call it. A lot of guys, they'll come up and they waste time by coming onto the gun and grabbing and squeezing and kind of forming their grip while the gun's still in the holster and then pulling it out. As opposed to, I call it more of a snatch, but I'm just hitting two spots on my hand. I'm hitting the web of my hand and the knuckle of my middle finger. When I come onto the gun, as soon as those two spots hit, that gun is coming out of the holster. Now, obviously, I have a non-retention holster, but even with a retention holster, it's the same concept. You got to hit the retention device, but as soon as you do that, it's the same. The idea is simply that you're squeezing into the gun and you're forming your grip while the gun is on its way to the target, right? As opposed to doing that while the gun's still in the holster. The number one area, I think, for most people is going to be on the target as far as where they can save time to the draw in their first shot. And this is where, like at this 5-yard-ish range, where the better shooters, as they draw the gun, and again, assuming they're drawing the gun, coming out, actually knowing you're going to fire the shot, being able to come into that trigger guard and basically start that trigger press sooner, right? start that trigger press and have it timed to where just that gun is actually, bam, going off as soon as the gun stops. Okay, most people, I would say, are not doing that. They're coming out and that gun is actually stopping, and they're having, and it's maybe like 3/10 of a second. 2-3/10 of a second, but they're having to come out and have that gun stop and like verify it's there. Whether they're close enough to really aim or not, it's just like just stop and then shoot, as opposed to learning to actually press the trigger on the way out, where you can save a lot of time. I'm just gonna do that kind of both ways right here. So I'm about 5 yards. I'm going to draw. First way I'm going to do this, I'm just going to draw and fire one shot on the target. And I don't really have to aim so much here. I'm going to get more onto that in the thing after. But I'm going to draw the gun. I'm going to prep the trigger on the way out. But I'm going to let the gun stop. I'm going to see a very quick little flash of my front sight. In you guys' case, it would be just a very quick little flash of the dot. And then I'm going to press the trigger. Let me just do that a couple of times here. Let's see what the time is. Ready? All right, 109. 1 second. 107. No, I was trying to hit the 0 on. So that was right at 1 second, right? And I drew the gun fairly fast. I came out, but I took a little bit of time to let the gun actually settle and to just see for an instant that it's there, and then press the trigger. So now what I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to try to push it, and I'm going to try to have the time. The timing is that's the tough part here, is have the timing such that I actually start that trigger press a little bit sooner, and then right when that gun is going off as soon as it hits extension. It's really going off before I have a chance to verify that it's there. And the danger of this is if my grip's off, if the gun's a little bit cockeyed in my hand, you know, it can end up with a little bit worse shot on the target, but it's the idea of how much speed can you gain here. So, see if I can get a little faster on this. Here we go. Ready? That was a 78. That was a 77. So, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
From between a second and 3/4 of a second right there. It's all on the target. It's generally where it's at. And at the end of the day, you got to know when you can get away with doing that and when you can't. It's that simple. Pretty much everybody could do it at 1 or 2 yards, right? Even though most people don't, because they never really use a timer enough and really push themselves to be that fast. The better you are, the better your index is, just your ability to actually look at the gun. Look at a target and just point the gun and have the gun be right there. The further away you can go and still do that. The further you can back up and go and still do that. In my opinion, most of you guys got dots, and I'm going to talk a little more about aiming on the thing we do after this, but you want to get to the point where on this, at this target, at 5 yards with the dot, you want to get to the point where you don't have to verify the dots there and then shoot. You get to the point where your index is good enough, you're just coming out and you're just letting it go. And it's no different than if the target was like 1 yard away. You just know it's there. You just know it's there, and you don't have to verify with the dot or the sights before you shoot. And that's exactly where you save 2 or 3/10 of a second. And so that's kind of where your master, grandmaster guys, that's what they're doing that the other guys aren't doing.
Our flow through cams though.
Oh, okay. So we have exterior chambers on the outside.
Okay, so we had to take a lunch break. I was going to film Rick over at Achilles Tactics, but right when I got over there, we broke for lunch, and we just had a really delicious chicken fried steak. So I'm going to try to get some of the others. I know we've got Fisher out here. We've got, who else do we have out here today?
Cowan's out here.
Cowan's, yeah, I got Cowan earlier, but there's a whole bunch of guys out here. So I'll try to get them, but I do have to get back to the hotel and get some sleep before night vision tonight. But before I leave, I told you guys there was something that I got to test yesterday that we get to test more today that technically doesn't exist but kind of exists, but I'll let them explain.
Hi everybody, as Preacher with Sons of Liberty Gunworks, what we have for you is what we're considering our new recce barrel. So this barrel potentially will be offered in 16 inch, 13.9 inch, and 12.5 inch. What it is a stainless, on the this one we have is a 13.9 mid with 5/8 24 threads. So not your usually half inch threads. So what we found is a lot of people, some very well-respected folks have come out and said, man, this shoot's really soft, it's really nice. We initially did some accuracy testing, and then we brought it out to Symposium because honestly we wanted guys to just burn as many rounds through it as possible and then go back and do more accuracy testing to see if this is something that we want to bring to the masses.
Awesome. So I can tell you I shot it yesterday, and just the recoil impulse, standing, shooting from like 50 yards, both suppressed and unsuppressed, was super nice. So we're going to group it today and see how it does with a few different ammos. Because it is still in the development stages, I don't know that I'll be able to show you guys the groups, but we'll see how it does. You'll get to see us shooting it though. So.
Yeah, in the square. Oh yeah. Yep.
It's a solid group there. That's a solid group too.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's just the round difference.
yeah, it's
I would say the other thing too is like if we had a smaller mag and maybe a
Oh,
bipod,
yeah.
these probably tighten up a little bit left to right.
oh for sure. Some people don't understand their own equipment, so not bad.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm not sweating it, man. I think there's still. All I'm saying, I think there's more in the gun than
Yeah.
what I'm showing here.
For sure.
I'm gonna do that bottom right because we have that round over on the left.
Fair enough. Money. Come on, Jimmy.
Jesus, man. All right. Oh, here we go. This was the 62 grain.
Hornady FMJ.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those were good. That was me. This was shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, shot 4, and 5 right here. That was the
62 grain Hornady match.
And then this was the 69 grain Sierra Match King, right?
Correct.
And then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I shanked one. All right, so that was a quick look at my first day or my first half a day at Shooter Symposium. Again, I did have to leave a little bit early to get back to the hotel to sleep for a little bit because I had night vision coming up. So I do have a video coming on the night vision course coming up next, so stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for all the content coming from Shooter Symposium. And again, big thank you to Big Tex Ordnance for making that happen, getting me a spot in there, and everything that they do for the shooting community. Incredibly grateful for them. Check out the links down below. And I'm really excited about some of the content coming out of Shooter Symposium, like the end of it. Really looking forward to that, so make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Karate chop that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and I will see you guys in the next one.